Did we finally hit the bottom? So 3 condos sold below $280,000, and the lowest one in the same building sold for $278,000. Also, 7 condos sold below $300,000 mark in Toronto. So did we hit the bottom, or is this just like a necessary adjustment in order for us to move forward? So I made a couple of charts with the PowerPoint slider, so I'll want to get into it because the biggest question that I have been asked is it the right time to buy? So the only way how we can figure out the situation, one, are you comfortable to buy and what you are buying? And the next question would be, what does the past look like and what is the future projection based on the actual price, based on the actual location, and based on what is currently going on in real estate market. So I think at this point it is obvious that condo is breathing extremely heavily. I would just like to add on this point, because we have this segment of condo that is breathing heavy, it will influence, and it is continuing to influence our freehold real estate market. And people ask or wonder why or how. It's a complete different product. And I agree with you. However, usually that segment of freehold real estate was somehow tied to condo market or pre-construction because people were getting pre-approved for HELOCs and line of credits. They were putting down their homes. They were basically betting on that pre-construction segment, condo segment. And most of these down payments, whether it's for investment purposes or they were trying to help their kids or parents or whatever the case is, was coming from credit, basically, right? Like HELOCs or line of credits and stuff like that. So it's just something to take into consideration because it's definitely tied to one another, and we definitely see the erosion and we see the holes now. But let's get into the slide together and we can talk about what is going on. All right, so GTA condo market value erosion, historical price shift from 2025-26. We can see that the actual loss, realized value lost, was somewhere around $37,000. And for 2026, as you can see in the graph in the middle image, says that it's projected to continue with the loss. So downtown shifted, price is not seen since 2018. This is very important to note. And those are 7 downtown condos that sold under $300,000 mark. All right, on the next slide, Toronto new condo sales 2025 collapse. And the reason why I'm shifting back to 2025, because we're in the early stages of 2026, and it only makes sense because any trajectory, you kind of have to go back a little bit and see where the trajectory is leading you towards, or where the trajectory is heading down, flat, rising up, and somehow we can calculate it that way. But going back, from January to October of 2025, total sales were 714 units, and that's down 86% versus 2023. And July of 2025 was the weakest month on record with 54 units sold. So at that point, it is clear that real estate agents and everybody in the industry started to panic, because all along the way, you know, like when the market actually received that shock from 2022 with the increase of interest rates, all of a sudden it went bananas, right? And we all know what happened. However, I guess the atmosphere with the agents and the banks, don't worry, it is just like a short trajectory. It's a phase, only a couple of months away, and the next spring market we will definitely be back on track, and we will see the recovery numbers. And therefore, you see from 2023 to 2024, 2025, you see that these numbers did not recover, and therefore the shock with realtors and the agents, they just went like they froze, right? So, and the market showed. So, next one. New condo resale versus pre-purchased pricing Q2 2025. So pre-purchased a year ago, usually people would pay an average price paid by buyers was around $1,187, and the price was significant. The resale in Q2 of 2025 was somewhere around $903 an average. So there was a price drop of $284 approximate average. And that is huge, ladies and gentlemen. That's like, 20%, 25%. And now this also depends on each individual situation. If you know what I'm trying to say at this point, because some people are hurting more than others. So this is just an average, right? Some people suffered or went through even bigger issues and more price reductions in order to get rid of units and whatnot, right? So this just goes to show you within 1 year, we have seen a significant drop. All right, so let's move on. Toronto pre-construction financing gap, financial gap, Q1 2025. This is where things, I have to fill you in a little bit here, because 2025 was the year of comeback, as per claims of many people. I would say it like that, right? Like, even I had many comments like, stop doom and gloom, 2025 springtime is the year. 3 years after the market kind of shook, now the recovery mode is around the corner, and whatever, right? You get the point. However, so many people, many developers, many entrepreneurs, many business people saw that opportunity to kind of start those sales centers, start those projects, start selling, right? Because they saw like, it's either we sell or we go under. And what happened, in order to sell, you need to have more than 70% under contract in order to funds to be released from the bank. So as you can see here on the left side, 70% must be sold before release of the funds. The result, completely stalled. Some sold up to 45%, not even near that threshold. In some experiences, I'm not going to name any projects, but even the 45% is way higher than what I have seen in some towers, right? So like, we're talking 10 to 15%, right? Like, even though they had they had great packages, and they were willing to wait for deposit, as long as you kind of sign that dotted line with the agreement, right? So they can get those funds from the bank. But it was just a chaos altogether, and I have seen those numbers, and they looked flat. Like, comparing to where they need to be, they looked completely flat, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so GTHA new condo sales 2024 plummeted, the higher volume, so 64% decline from 2023. So 2024 has seen the lowest volume since 1996. That is crazy. Okay, so moving on. Toronto Real Estate Board 2025 GTA condo market data. So total GTA condo sales on the left side of 2025 were 16,425. That's down 14.7% from 2024, averaging somewhere around 667,000. So you can definitely and clearly see that each year keeps getting worse. And one of the big elements, I would say, when people are making huge commitments is obviously trust, right? Like they cannot have that fear mode. They cannot they like they cannot be undecisive, right? Because they're making a commitment that's, for decades out. So when things like this come into play, like it can shake a lot of things, and therefore you see that each year is getting worse and worse and worse. And we'll get to the fact and trying to answer the question, should I buy today, right? And in the next upcoming slide, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. So December of 2025, brutal month for GTA condo market. So total condo sales in December of 2025, which is definitely recent to where we're at in 2026, was 1,029. So that's down 11.2% year over year. So average condo price in December of 2025 went down to $628,000 on average. That's down 7.3% year over year. Now we get to the slide where I would like to kind of get into the whole theme, should I buy, should I not buy? So it is completely personal decision, and it's a financial decision, and it's commitment decision. So you have to answer that question. But every market, once you get closer to whether if I'm going to rent or own, and the monthly outcome is the same, right? Then the buyers' light bulbs start lighting up because they say, well, why should I rent for a sum if I can own for the same amount per month? So that can change a lot of things. I personally think we're far out, and in the further slides, I'll explain why. But let's get into this slide together. So new data, first time buyers financial advantage. So you can see on the left side, buying the financial sense option. So buying a condo at $293,000 and monthly fees versus renting for $1,800 plus a month. Somehow this kind of, it's slowly starting to make sense for most. But in the next slide, this is what we see, and this is extremely scary because 2 years ago versus now, downtown condo pricing. So 2 years ago in 2024, no downtown finds under $400,000. So listings were above this particular threshold. And then we see the price drop. And now in January of 2026, a current MLS listing was listed at $304,800, one bedroom condo on 5949 Yonge Street in Toronto. So it goes to show you that, there's still that scarcity because the trajectory, as mentioned before, it's still there. It's still there. So even if the threshold price is, let's say, at $300,000 and it makes financial sense, but will it still drop another 30, 40, 50K, right? So that's a question, that's something that most people have to answer to themselves, right? Like it has to make that sense, financial sense. It has to make that, it has to make sense, just has to make sense with the trajectory and with the stats that even Remax, even Royal LePage, the big brokers out there are saying, like, look, 2026, it will continue to drop. So how does a buyer, first time buyer, or a buyer period, an investor, puts their funds together and takes this leap of faith if the numbers and the trajectory is showing otherwise? I mean, it almost doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to lose money. And just to add, I read all of your comments, and I know some people are commenting where are at right now, and this seems to be somewhere in the 2018 pricing. It should be 50% lower than what it is. And it's funny because, like, I think so. I really do think so, because I remember times where condos were at like 120,000, 150,000, 200,000, right? And the income was close or similar to what it is today. Like, I don't even want to get into the fact where, everything else was cheaper: gas, insurances, groceries, other amenities and whatnot, much, much cheaper. And at that time, the market was hot. Why? Because it made sense. Financially, it made sense. And people had something to hope for, right? So it's just a simple process. All right, so Toronto pre-construction market, investors' appetite evaporates. RBC Economics on the left side, you can see that largely evaporated. So the traditional investor appetite within or from abroad, it's gone, right? Basically, so the result, a negative cash flow, killed that. Kill those prospects, kill the entire industry, because it doesn't make any sense. And investors, they have two ways of actually making sense of a purchase as an investor. So they can say, look, I don't care if I'm underwater, so it's called the cash flow. However, I will gain it on the equity. So if I wait for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and many investors did that for a long period of time, but they were betting large, and most of them won, which is fine. However, they were betting on that equity, right? So nobody cared about the renters and about making small increments on cash flow. Now it's reverse. First, you're losing on the actual equity, and your equity is in jeopardy for 2026 and 7, because you don't know if it's going to go up. The chances are highly that it will even be less than what it's worth today. That's one. And second, why will you carry something with negative cash flow, right? So first you have to put a down payment, so your money is definitely tied and gone, and then you're worrying about negative cash flow. So investors, people generally don't like that. As you can see here, this is our final slide. 400 Homewood Avenue, that's on the east end, sold in September for $278,000. All right, on the right side, 251 Jarvis Street, new build in 2020, sold in October of 2025 for an even $300,000. So the question here is, will you buy a condo in 2026? Second question would be, how confident do you feel about our current real estate market? And the third question is, did you subscribe to the channel yet? So hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.